If you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, what is happening? If you have felt disgusted by the aging process, trust me, you're not alone. This podcast is for the fierce women who want to feel powerful, sexy, and beautiful in their own skin. You deserve to look in that mirror and feel proud of what you see, not filled with self-doubt. Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast with your host, me, Morgan Barkus. I also have a 90-day coaching program specifically designed for women like you who are ready to ditch the negative self-talk and step into their unapologetic selves. If you are ready to stop feeling stuck in that mindset and want to feel happy, light, and free, then I'm the coach for you. For now, settle in. Let's get ready to redefine what it means to live unapologetically. And hey, if you want to take the first steps towards that transformation, head over to morganbarkus.com and schedule a call with me to see if we're a good fit for my coaching program. Let's get into this episode. Let's get your beautiful self introduced. Amy Dave, physician's assistant. Girl, I didn't know that. That's so awesome. Physician assistant for over 24 years. I'm reading this because it helps me be clear. She's also a women's wellness coach specializing in helping moms navigate this crazy life by syncing their daily habits with their monthly cycles. A mom of 3 boys, that's a lot. Amy realized her passion while making changes to improve her own symptoms. Using lifestyle changes, Amy helps women overcome chronic fatigue, frustration, stress, and feelings of overwhelm, replacing them with increased energy, efficiency, and empowerment. Who doesn't want that? Amy also helps women transition into menopause gracefully. Amy,
thank you, Morgan, for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, I am excited to talk to you because you cover topics I know nothing about, haven't really experienced the true symptoms of perimenopause yet. I had a girlfriend, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, friend of mine. We were doing our weekly check-ins, and I was talking about some mood swings, and granted, winter has that effect on me. And she was like, you might want to get your hormones checked. So I'm on a DHEA supplement to help get my testosterone up, started lifting heavier again, eating more protein. And that's about all I know so far, or I've experienced in terms of perimenopause. Where in your personal journey did this topic, if you will, the specialization, hit home for you in your heart and soul, and that you wanted to become a wellness coach, work with women on this topic? Like, what's the personal connection?
So I always knew I wanted to help people, right? That's why I became a physician assistant. But when I became a physician assistant, and I was big on preventive medicine, there wasn't many options for women, and I didn't know that. I didn't know there was other options at the time. So I had a lot of PMS every month. I had heavy bleeding. I had irritability, cramping, bloating, all kinds of symptoms every month, and those just got worse. Yeah, of course.
All the fun stuff.
And those got worse when I had kids, which is common because after you have children, your hormones are all out of whack. But again, I thought I was eating healthy. I thought I was eating lots of salads. I was exercising, doing cardio, like 45 to 60 minutes a day. So I thought I was doing all these healthy things. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't drink caffeine even. So it's like, again, I thought I was being healthy, being a good girl. And I went back to school. After I became a mom, I was a stay-at-home mom for several years. And then I went back to school to get my master's degree. And at that time, I also got an advanced certificate in nutrition. And it was then that I was first introduced to this topic of cycle syncing. And I was intrigued. I was like, oh, this sounds cool. There was a guest lecturer in my class. I bought her book right away. I'm like, this sounds great. So the book came and it sat on my nightstand for several months, untouched. And then it got moved to my bookshelf where it sat for a couple of years, untouched. I was a busy mom. I was working. I was taking care of the house. I didn't have time to read a book. And then COVID hit.
Sure.
During quarantine, I saw the book on my bookshelf. I'm like, you know what? This is a great time to learn about my body and fix my symptoms and get myself feeling better. So I started reading the book and I was like, this is kind of cool. Maybe one day I will do it. Again, the light bulb hadn't gone off yet. And then I ended up in the ER one day. Now, a little bit of backstory. I had a history of lymphoma in my early 20s. And because of the treatments I had at that time, I need to get my heart checked, every couple years. So I was at the cardiology office and they had me on the treadmill and I was running, and then they check the heart with a sonogram. And the doctor checked my heart and he was like, "Oh my God, you have multiple blockages in your heart arteries. You need to go to the ER right away." And I was like, "Huh? What? I feel fine though." So I ended up in the ER. And thankfully, once I had the angiogram, it showed my arteries were fine. It was a false positive, which can happen.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness. When did it freak you out?
Yeah.
and
So
your
in
entire
between,
family?
so while I was sitting in the ER, there was a PA examining me. And at this time, they were talking about, you're going to need bypass surgery, right? Like tonight. And so I was like, no, I have 3 little kids at home. My youngest was probably in like second grade at the time. So I was like, they're young. They need me. I need to be here. Like, I want to see their graduations and weddings and have grandkids. And like, I want to live a long life. So that's when the light bulb went off that I need to make some changes in my habits, my daily habits. And
In that moment, side question, can you ask for a second opinion? Because obviously we put so much trust, and then you have like a scare, and you're like, whatever it takes, take care of me. Is there a way, like even in that moment where you're like, can I get a second opinion? Like, how did they find out
so
it was a
the
false
the
positive?
angiogram test that they do, they actually inject a dye and look at my heart arteries. So that I found out later that the stress echo can be present as a false positive, especially in women. So that's not a diagnostic test, but the angiogram is very definitive because they're actually injecting dye and looking into your arteries. So,
Okay.
but yeah, luckily everything turned out fine. And from that day, I started implementing the cycle syncing techniques that I was learning. And just a brief introduction to it for those who are not familiar with it. A woman's body goes through 4 phases every month. So everyone knows you have a monthly bleed. And if you're trying to get pregnant, you track ovulation, right? So those are 2 of the phases, but there's 2 phases in between there. So there's a total of 4 phases. And the hormone levels fluctuate throughout the month. So you need to eat different nutrients and exercise differently based on where you are in the cycle. And this is not something that's taught in medical school or PA school or anything. So I
was going to ask you about that because didn't you mention the book you found out about was
yeah.
while you were in school, or how did you find? Because from what I've heard, because now perimenopause is like on Instagram and people are talking about it gratefully. And I heard one of the folks that are on the Instagram talking about perimenopause say, when I was in medical school, we talked about it for like an hour in the entirety of getting my degree. And I thought, wow. So when you mentioned that you had a speaker or somebody talk about it, say more about that in the program that you were actually like this concept was actually presented.
Again, this was in one of my classes to get an advanced certificate in nutrition for healthcare providers, right? So it was something extra that I did. And the lady's name is Elisa Vitti. And she has 2 books. They're called Woman Code and In the Flow. And she was my introduction to this concept of cycle syncing. And like I said, I loved it. Once I implemented it, so once I started doing all the techniques and following the recommendations, my symptoms went away in 4 months. And I was
Is it specific to, because you know how some people are like they eat more protein than some other people, and some people are more vegetarian and some people are more carnivore, and some women like hot foods like me, whereas my mom likes cold salads and cold drinks. Like we all kind of have a body type. Can you alter those preferences around the foods and nutrients you need?
So
like
in
you were
her
saying?
book, like I'm not an expert on that stuff, but in her book, she goes into There are people who metabolize things faster, and there are people who metabolize slower. And depending on which one you are, you might have to vary your carb intake or your protein intake. And even some people don't have regular monthly cycles, right? So if you have
True.
PCOS or other conditions, you don't have a monthly cycle. So then you have to fix that first. And that's a common symptom with obesity. So PCOS, obesity can cause missing cycles. So you would have to work on that stuff first.
Well, so disordered eating too, right? Like disordered eating, because I know many years ago when I was
Yeah.
anorexic, I
Yep.
lost my period because I don't think I had enough
Yep.
estrogen or fat on
And
my body
like
to.
athletes lose their cycle, like marathon trainers. I mean,
Mm.
not just working out every day, but those who are doing intense workouts, they lose their cycle.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons why, everyone's body's different. Right.
Sure. Now, on a high level, what are because you said your symptoms were gone in 4 months, which is awesome. I mean, if you've been suffering for years, what's 4 months in the scheme of getting it figured out and getting it right? What are some of the nutrition and exercise things that you changed that, high level? Again, you said it can be individualized depending on the woman. And what are some of the high level exercises, how you change it depending on your phase of your cycle and the foods that you're
So I'll give you
eating?
some examples, right? So during ovulation, which is normally when your ovary releases an egg, there's a surge of testosterone. So you have a lot more natural energy that week. And so you want to do your highest intensity exercises. So high intensity interval training, kickboxing, boot camp style workouts. Whereas the following week in the luteal phase, which is also your like PMS week, you want to do more strength training or Pilates and not get your heart rate up so high. On your bleed, you want to do yoga or like take a brisk walk, right? So those are the different exercises that you can do. And the same thing with the foods that you eat. Like in 1 week, you're supposed to eat more raw fruits and vegetables, right? In ovulation. So more salads, smoothies, things like that. But when you're on your bleed, you want more warming foods. So you want soups and stews and hot teas and things like that. So it goes back to like the traditional Chinese kind of medicine where, woman's body flows in seasons. So the winter season is cold, right? So when you're bleeding, it's kind of like the winter season. You want warming foods, soups, teas. Whereas in ovulation, again, when your testosterone's high, your body temperature might go up a little bit. It's like a summer month, so you want more raw vegetables and raw fruits. And there's a lot of other nutrients that you like, B vitamins, magnesium. When you bleed, you need iron and zinc. So it's a whole, I teach this in a 3-month program. So there's a whole lot of different things to change, but it's all healthy eating and exercising. It's just which foods you're focusing on and which exercises you're doing.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking about my own journey, not even knowing that it had anything to do with cycle syncing, and just finally pulling myself out of disordered eating and learning how to be intuitive and work out and eat intuitively. So like you're saying, I know during my period, you're right. I lean toward, you know what? I'm just going to do a walk today, and that's good enough, and that's all I got the energy for, and that's okay. And you're right. There are times, which now that you're saying it, probably when the testosterone is higher, you're right. Then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go hit the weight room. I got like an hour and a half in today, and
Yep.
I feel great. And there are times of the month that I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing 15 minutes of
Yep.
yoga, and that's it. And so that it's making sense that even if you truly listen to your
Yes.
body, you almost
Yes.
naturally
Yeah.
cycle or sync, without even thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Total
That
sense.
makes
So
sense.
the medical community is focused on the male body, right? So diseases,
Great.
everything, of course,
Helpful.
everything is the males were studied more often because they thought it would be complicated to study females with their hormone fluctuations and this and that. So most of the research studies are done for men. Now, men can do the same exercises and eat the same foods every day, and they'll still get results, right? So for a long time, women were taught the same thing, right? Eat salads, eat healthy, eat this, eat that, exercise every day, do the same things every day. And now this is, an emerging wellness topic. So now people are starting to talk about cycle syncing, and they're saying, no, you got to do different things based on your hormones, because a male's hormone cycle, they just have the 24-hour clock and that's it. Right?
Isn't that amazing? When I learned that, I thought, wait a second. And I've been telling guys that. I'm like, just so you know, you wake up every morning a new person. It takes me 28 to 30 days. It's like I have to wait an entire month to get through, it's fascinating that guys can just wake up every morning and they're like brand new. And we are going through weeks where we're like, what is
and
wrong
it affects
with
our
me?
emotions. It affects us socially. Like there are some weeks, again, when the testosterone is high, we're more naturally outgoing, right? That's when we want to be, that's our fertile window, right? So that's when we want to be going out and meeting guys and doing this and doing that. And there are other weeks when you don't feel like going out, right? You just want to curl up in bed and go to sleep, right? So
Yes. Tell me more, because it sounds like you have a partner, you're married.
Yep.
You got kiddo. Obviously, the cycle syncing was very beneficial to you. I mean, you felt better. I'm assuming your mental health got better. How did it affect you and your dynamics with your family as well, especially having boys? I mean, they're little wild child, boys are different. And just how you all started to work together differently when you got your mental and physical health in a way that felt better for you.
One of my big challenges was irritability before, and I was always yelling at my husband, my kids for like little things. And I'll just give you a little side real quick, but my podcast is about mom stories. And so I have one episode where my kids started a movie like later at night and I fell asleep. And then the finale of the movie came and it was really loud and it woke me up. And I ran downstairs. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Don't you know it's late and I'm trying to sleep? And I'm just yelling at them. They're like, can we just finish the movie? We'll just lower the volume a little bit. And I was like, why? How did I get so angry about like the volume of a movie? I could have just told them, hey, turn it down a little bit. I'm sleeping. But yes, I was very irritable. I was yelling at everybody. I was had trouble focusing. My kids would be telling me a story and I'd be like half there, half distracted, half I don't know, just not paying attention. But when I started cycle syncing, one, I wasn't irritable as much. So I wasn't yelling at my family as much. My mental clarity increased. So I was like more present. It came in stages. So first it was my physical symptoms and I felt better. And I was like, oh, wow. Then my energy came back and I was sleeping better. Then my migraines went away and I realized I wasn't yelling, right? And when my kids tell a story, I can remember the details. And it was just a gradual change. Now my husband works in healthcare, so he knew, like when I started reading this book and I'm like, I'm going to start making some changes and see what happens. And so initially, like, he'd be like, okay, we go out for lunch dates and stuff. He'd be like, oh, let's go here. And I'd say, okay, fine. And then after I started, I was like, you know what? I need to eat salads this week, or I need to have soup. So let's go somewhere where I can get a soup. And so now he knows. He's like, where do you want to eat? What do you want to eat for lunch? I'm like, thank you. So yeah, that.
Well, and you're both probably better. Like you're both enjoying each other's. You're more present, and you're probably in a better place. And then he's loving
not yelling.
that you're probably feeling good too. And then
not yelling at him.
Yeah.
So it's a gradual process, and it's still a work in progress. Like there are times when if I have a busy couple of months, like last year we had. Between 2 months, we had a vacation, my husband's milestone birthday, and my son graduated from 5th grade. So it was like a lot of extra parties and nights out and things that we weren't normally doing. And sure enough, that following month, I had cramps and bloating again. And I was like, But I knew, I was like, okay, it's because I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping right. This is why my symptoms are here, right? I went back to my routine and my symptoms went away. So it's an ongoing process. I'm still learning, and things I'm still learning, like with cycle syncing too, even in a relationship, things can change. Like there's certain weeks where you need more lubricant, or you need more foreplay, or you need other stuff. And there are other weeks where things come faster, right? So that for me is like where I'm still evolving and growing and learning now. But we're
Sure. And it sounds like you have a great partner. What would you suggest for women who maybe it's harder to talk about that? Because I love that you mentioned that, because I mean, it's 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, it was harder when women would go through some of these, whether they're, still have their cycle, or they've gone through the perimenopause and now they're on the other side, having gone through menopause, and their body changes so much. It changes within the month during the time that they're still having periods or still bleeding, as you say. And then once they're done, now there's other changes in their body. And do you help women facilitate those conversations with their partner? Because I think of most men, a loving partner wants to be supportive, wants to understand, wants to have good sex that you also enjoy. But if you aren't communicating those things, then it's like, oh, she doesn't want to
yeah,
have sex anymore. No, that's not it. It's
yep,
actually
and that's very
painful, or
common.
it's I need this and
Yeah,
that
it's
during.
really common.
What's that?
So the first thing, just
Yeah.
like anywhere else, like even if I'm working with somebody on nutrition or whatever, we start with your baseline, right? What are you doing now? What's
Mm-hmm.
working? What's not working? Journal about it, right? Figure it out. Create a diary every day. Like today, I didn't feel like this. Today, I felt better. This worked today. This didn't work today. So the first thing you want to do is become aware of it. And then you'll start to notice patterns. You may start to notice, like, you know what? Every time it rains, like I don't feel like doing anything or whatever, like whatever it is. If you're cycling, like, oh, in my luteal phase, I just don't want to be near my husband for a couple days, like, right? Whatever it is, you might start to see patterns. And then you have to work on yourself first, right? So, intimacy, relationships, and again, this is an area where I'm still struggling and working on it, but it comes from first self love, self worth, self confidence, right? Because if you don't think you look good for your husband, even if he thinks you're the most beautiful person in the world, it's not going to resonate and it's not going to hit, right? And again, these are still challenges that I'm dealing with, but you got to learn about yourself, and then you got to talk to your doctor. A lot of women go to the doctor, and when we say, what's bothering you? They don't like to say anything, especially like perimenopause, when it hurts to be intimate with my husband, right? Like, what do I do? You need a lubricant, right? You need maybe some hormone therapy, something. But women don't, they don't talk about it when they go to the doctor, and the doctor's not going to ask you specifically. They're going to say, is anything bothering you? And if you say no, they're going to move on because they only have 10 or 15 minutes, right? You've been to the doctor, it's fast. So unless you're verbal and you speak up about it, whether it's to a doctor or to somebody else who can help you in other ways, or nobody's going to know and nobody's going to be able to help.
And I really am grateful in this day and age. I know there's lots of negative things about the internet. A lot of wonderful things are the
Yes.
resources. Because as you were talking, I was thinking, not everyone has the resources to go to, for instance, I chose not to go to my PCP about hormones because they did like a hormone panel and they're like, looks great. And I was like, okay. Well, then I went to a woman specific clinic that deals specifically, like, they run, the panels are way more thorough, and their numbers are even a different, lined up differently. They did an ultrasound, like they were doing all the, like, it was a full on woman's check. And not everyone has the resources to be able to do that, or maybe they're in a regional area that doesn't have something like that, which is unfortunate. And there is the internet. And thank goodness, like you and I said, there's people starting to
Yeah.
talk about it now. Even Halle
Yeah.
Berry, I listened to her. I love the podcast, Trevor Noah's podcast, and she was on. And I didn't even realize, like, I knew long distance that she was kind of talking about perimenopause and some of the difficulties or the things that go on with a woman's body. Having listened to her interview and like really what happened between her and her partner, and there was the pain and some bleeding, and she's like, what is happening? And then she went to a specialist and she learned about her body. I mean, thank goodness we have the internet now and people speaking up about these things, that if you can't afford or you don't have amazing insurance to go to a place, you can at least start looking online at resources and go, wow, I'm not
Yes.
crazy, or there's nothing wrong with me. There are millions of women. I mean, what I was just out of curiosity, I was like, how many women are there in the United States? In because you and I were in the same coaching program and we mostly work with women, and I was like, there's a lot of women in the world just here and it was like 169 million women just in the United States. And I was like, we are experiencing these things, we are talking about these things, or we should be talking about these things. So I do like the internet for that, because you can really find some quality resources if you can't
Yes.
actually go to a clinic
Yes.
that
You can
specializes in.
learn. There's a lot of free stuff on YouTube. I mean, you can learn as long as it's from like a respectable source, right? Like, don't just believe everything you hear. But there's a lot of doctors out there who are
Yeah.
teaching on menopause, on perimenopause. There are, they're writing books on all of these things. And again, if you can't buy it, you go to the library and you get it, you read it, right? Send it back. So yeah, it is becoming more mainstream. The only thing I would recommend to women, if you're starting to go into that menopause stage, so mid 40s to mid 50s, find a menopause specialist, because even your OBGYN, they may not be up to date with all the newer recommendations and things that have changed in the last 20 years. So you can go online and find menopause certified specialists. And I would suggest talk to them when you're in your mid 40s to mid 50s and you're going through that transition.
Love that. You mentioned your podcast. Say more about the podcast, and you mentioned it's specifically about motherhood and fun stories. You have a story you could
I have
share
lots
us?
of stories. So I have a YouTube channel where I do just general health and wellness tips. Very straightforward, 5 ways to relieve menstrual cramps, or 6 ways to reduce stress, or whatever. It's very basic, very scientific. So when I started my podcast, I wanted to take a different approach. One, because everybody likes to tell stories. 2, because they remember stories. And 3, because I'm sure you've heard for your friends who have kids, like, these children do the wildest, craziest things that we could never imagine ever.
And they say the funniest thing sometimes. And you're like,
Yeah,
how did you know
it's so,
that?
and I just wanted to keep it light and funny, and so I've had some great moms share some stories. But I have 3 boys, right? You wouldn't think I have stuffed animals in my house. We counted. So I know when we counted, it was like 180 something. I'm sure there's over 200 now. All of our stuffed animals have names. They have personalities. They have voices. Wow. There are some who follow the rules and, are do-gooders and this and that. And there are other stuffed animals who break the rules and cause trouble with other stuffed animals, and they end up in jail. And these are things that my kids do.
Wow, that is extreme. They didn't even go to therapy. They went right
we
to
have an
jail.
Amazon box, like a larger Amazon box, and my kids cut slits into it like a jail. And yes, there are certain stuffed animals who end up there more often than others, I will say. There's one, it's a little stuffed tiger, and his name is Soap. and he likes to clean my house. So my son will go around and like clean the counters and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I love him. He's my favorite. But there are others who are like, I have boys, right? So we have Nerf guns in the house, and we have plastic swords and pirate swords. And they'll take the pirate sword. One kid will run with the stuffed animal, chasing the other kid with the other stuffed animal. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, this one wants to fight with that one. And they have all these crazy stories. And I'm telling you, I can't keep up with their personalities and their names and I'm like, who are you again?
Having a therapy background, I'm thinking of like play therapy, actually, where they can learn without having to make it personalized. They can learn how to communicate with each other, solve problems. Like, it's really interesting.
My youngest son does this, and my niece does it too. But every morning, I'm up early, I'm making breakfast and lunch. When he comes down, he's got one stuffed animal with him. And I have to say hello to the animal, like give him pets, and then I hug the animal. Then I can hug my son, right? Oh, good morning, good morning. So, and my niece, she's even younger. She does the same thing. She has this little Curious George stuffed animal, right? And I have to talk to George to talk to her, like, George, how was your day at school? And then she'll say, oh, he had fun. He did this and he did that. Oh, okay. George, do you want to go to the park? Like, I can't ask her directly, but I have to ask through George. So yeah, it's fun.
What about one of your guests? Was there any guest that told a story that shocked you, that you're like, wow, that is a first? I've heard all the things.
All of them were a little bit different. So one of the ladies in our program, another one of our fellow coaches, she told me a story, and her kids are grown now, but she told me a story of how the nanny was babysitting and she was driving home from work, and she sees a strange woman with her son on the street. Her son had gotten out of the house. The nanny had no clue and ran down the block. And luckily this lady found him and was holding him. And this other woman just happened to be driving home and was like, wait, that's my son. Like, what's he doing in this lady's hands? I had another mom who, she had 4 kids and she was taking 2 of them on a weekend trip to their beach house. One was staying home for some event that she had at school, and the 4th one got in trouble, so she was supposed to stay home. She ended up sneaking into the trunk of the car, being a stowaway, and joining her mom and siblings at the beach house. But like, her mom didn't know. She's like, I'm driving, my 3rd child is sitting in the trunk. I have no idea with the luggage. So yeah, it's
So she popped open the trunk and was like,
pretty much at the end of the trip, like, she didn't know the whole way down that there was a 3rd child in her car. And the husband too at home.
Thank goodness
who was supposed to be, watching the other 2, had no idea that one was missing.
Wow. Okay. So what's the name of that podcast?
It's called This Incredible Mom Life.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's go back to eating and cycle syncing for 1 second. I have a question about, because I fancy myself as mostly healthy. I try to make good choices. I try to be intuitive about my eating and think, what do I feel like eating? And don't get me wrong, sometimes, like yesterday, I messaged a girlfriend of mine. I was like, I'm having one of those days I just want to eat a pint of ice cream. I'm not going to, because I know I won't feel good and I'll have bubble guts after. So I'm not going to make that choice. Boy, I'm having one of those moods where I just want to eat a pint of ice cream. That being said, we don't eat perfect. And are there absolute no-nos that will almost drop kick a woman during certain phases, where it's like, yeah, you can do that thing or drink that thing and you will pay for it? Are there certain foods that it's like, yeah, there's always a little wiggle room with this, that, and the other, and these are some bad ones, I would stay away from them during certain phases?
So first rule is that enjoy life, right? Enjoy the food, enjoy the people, enjoy the company. I like to follow an 80-20 rule. And sometimes it's more like 75-25%, but if you're eating clean 80% of the time, go ahead and have not the whole pint, but like a couple of bites of ice cream, right? Enjoy the fried foods, but it should be as a special treat, not as like a daily thing. Because if you restrict yourself and you eliminate foods completely, especially your favorite foods, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up binging. Right? And when you do get a taste of that, you won't want to stop. And so I teach this to my kids now too. When they were little, I used to puree vegetables and sneak them into their, pasta sauce and this and that. Like even I make homemade muffins and they're made with applesauce and prunes and flax seeds and all kinds of good stuff. And when they were little, I didn't really tell them anything, but now they're teenagers. And I'm like, listen, my muffins and my pancakes and, my pasta is a lot different than the ones we get when we go out. Right. And I tell them the same thing. I'm like, it's okay when we go out to have the regular pasta with the sauce, have the mozzarella sticks. I eat them too, whatever. But it's not okay to be doing that every day. Right. And so I have a son, he's a sophomore. He's going to be going off to college soon. And so I'm starting to tell him, like, you know what? In 2 years, you're going to be eating outside food all the time. Right. Like they have those buffets and the meal halls and right things like that. But I'm like, you're going to have to be conscious about getting your fruits and vegetables in because it's going to be a lot of protein, a lot of carbs and other junk foods. So you're going to have to be conscious of just making sure you get at least some fruits and vegetables in like at every meal. And he was like, okay, I can do that. Because I always offer them like fruits at, lunch or breakfast, or there's always a fruit or a vegetable on the table somewhere. And so they're starting to recognize that. And they will see me eat healthy and they will see me eat ice cream and, mozzarella sticks too. But I hope what they see is that the quantity is smaller for the junk foods, right? And it's, there's several days in between. Like last week I had ice cream because it was the ice cream place just opened for the season, right? So we all went and I had the little single scoop of ice cream, but I don't always get it. And sometimes I'll just be like, hey, can I just have one bite from yours? Like, that's all I need today. And so I hope they see that. And I do tell them, like, when I wasn't eating healthy, I wasn't feeling good. Right. And now I'm eating healthy and I feel good. And there are days when, if we have too many parties or whatever in a row, that I will eat junk food and then I'll feel it. But I know it's coming. I know exactly why it's happening. I know how to make it better. So I just hope they're aware of that. And again, for me too, it's a learning process. Some days I just want the junk food and I don't want anything else. But I try to like, okay.
Yeah. I went away to college. I did not eat super healthy because you kind of like, wow, now I'm in college. I can eat whatever I want. I got this like expense account at this cafeteria or whatever. And I kind of swung, and you're right. Then, like I said, I really had to learn how to be more intuitive and say, yeah, I could eat this thing, and then I don't feel good. I don't sleep good, or I feel lethargic, or whatever it is. And so now when people say, what do you eat? And I say exactly what I want to eat. And usually I do take a moment, I take a beat and think, I can eat whatever I want. I am a grown woman with money.
Yes.
I can go buy or eat whatever I want. I have a vehicle. I can go drive somewhere and eat whatever I want, whenever I want. And how do I want to feel? And so, and I think, I'm sure you've instilled enough good habits in the kiddos, and nothing works better than leading by example. I watch my family protein, vegetable, potato almost every night, and they had a workout room and they worked out. And so I watched my parents be healthy. So even though I swung a little bit when I went away to college, it was like, doesn't feel good. And then you kind of figure it back out and you can tap into that intuitive eating. I have a selfish question for you in terms of the phases. What did you call the phase right before you actually bleed?
The luteal phase.
Is that the
luteal
ovulation
phase, the PMS week.
That phase is okay. Well, that phase is not my friend, and I'm sure not anybody is. And I will say I have it in check. So when I used to, I lived in Minneapolis. This had to have been sometime in the 2008, 10 maybe ish. My PMS was so bad, I swear I was almost suicidal. Like there were times I was like, what is wrong with me? And I went to an acupuncturist. One, he had me start eating red meat again because I hadn't eaten red meat in a very long time. And he said, Morgan, I'm not telling you what to do. And based on your body type and what's going on, I would highly recommend you eat red meat. I felt like a lioness that had a kill after not eating for a very long time. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I just figured out I need red meat in
Yep.
my diet. That's just me. And anyway, and the acupuncture helped as well. That being said, the only thing I still struggle with, and it's only been in the last year or so, and it could be perimenopause, the heat. Because I have this aura ring, which I love because it tracks my body temperature. And like 12 to 13 days before I bleed, my temperature's up anywhere from, half a degree to
Yep.
1.5 degrees. And I sleep terrible. And I'm like, is there anything to do besides keep the room cold? Because it's so annoying to me because I usually run cold. I'm over here. I always like cozy. I like being warm. And that week, I am sleeping and I'm so hot and I can't stand it. Like, are there things to do to
Yeah. So if you're talking
minimize
about
that?
15 days before your bleed, that's actually ovulation. When your body temperature is supposed to go up.
It's usually like
Yeah.
12
So
to 13.
when you
It's about
ovulate,
12 to 13.
your basal body
Oh,
temperature does change a little bit by like a degree. And that's one of the ways to track.
oh boy, it ruins my.
So that's the week where you have a surge of both testosterone and estrogen. Just to give you a little scientific background, your liver
Mhm.
is trying to metabolize all of these hormones, right? One, if there's a lot of it
Okay.
and your liver can't handle it, it gets stored in fat cells. The other problem is if your liver doesn't have the nutrients it needs, it can't metabolize the hormones as fast. So when you feel that, I would try eating a lot more. They're called cruciferous vegetables. So things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, carrots. Just like throw them into your meals for a couple of days and see if that changes anything.
Okay.
You might notice a difference. You might.
I will. 'Cause like you said, I run cold usually, and for that week, I
Yeah.
am just hot in the bed, and
I
it
would
drives
try
me
that.
nuts.
So, it doesn't have to be completely, I just need fruits and vegetables all day long. But in every meal, try to include either broccoli or cauliflower or carrots or Brussels sprouts or something.
Okay.
Not in lunch, dinner, and see if it might make a
Sure.
difference. I mean, you're staying hydrated, right?
Okay.
You're
I'll try to
drinking
do more of
water, you're
that.
staying hydrated.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Well, and actually my favorite evening snack, I usually eat dinner like earlier afternoon, later afternoon. So that by the time 6, 7 o'clock at night, I usually roast vegetables and broccoli or vegetables and broccoli and cauliflower almost every night
nice.
because I enjoy it. It's like salty and olive oil on there. So it's a snack, but it feels warm and it's healthy. And like you're saying, maybe I try harder to do more
Yeah.
of that during that week and eat
Yeah.
more
If you're
vegetables
doing it
because I'm
anyway,
not the best
I would
kid.
just
My
maybe have a little bit more.
ramp it up. Yeah. Can you tell me more about your coaching then and some of the benefits? Because truly every woman is experiencing this, whether she likes it or not, or has control of it or not. And it really sounds awesome that to have someone else go, let's do an evaluation. Where's your baseline? And that one-on-one help, because what woman doesn't want to feel better and be a better version of herself every month and really understand her body. So talk to me about
Well, the
your
first thing
coaching
I'm going to say
program.
is I wish I had a coach when I went through my own journey, because once I started in my coaching
Yeah.
program, my personal growth was exponential, right? Like it took me a couple of years to do the cycle syncing and figure it out and get all this stuff done. When I joined my coaching program, and they had business coaching, but it was also wellness coaching, right? Because she's teaching. I saw change so much faster because they were there. They could see my blind spots. They could help me through obstacles and challenges. And so I do recommend it to everyone. I wish I had seen my coach earlier and started coaching way back when, if I could have. If I had known that health coaches existed when I was in my 20s and 30s, I probably would have signed up. I didn't even know what they were at that time. But if you have a coach, and in my program, so I go through the cycle syncing, right? If you're having cycles, if you're in perimenopause and your cycles are starting to be irregular, we can work with that. I focus on all the lifestyle changes. So nutrition, I call it an active lifestyle. So some people can't exercise regularly, or, they have arthritis, they have whatever it is. Or even if they're a busy mom and, running around, but an active lifestyle, nutrition, stress reduction, sleep. So those are the four things that we go into detail with. And once you start getting those and you start feeling better, then we can work on spirituality, personal growth, and mindset shifts. And, and sometimes people will say, oh, I don't like broccoli. My mom used to make it, mushy and soggy when I was little, and I've never eaten it since. Well, okay, that's a story, right? We learn about stories as coaches. Is that the truth? And they're like, no. I'm like, can it be made other ways? Well, yes. Like, have you ever had it steamed or, roasted or with cheese or with whatever? And they're like, no. I'm like, do you throw it into your macaroni? Why not? No. Okay, well, you won't know if you like broccoli if you don't eat it in different ways, right? And so sometimes many times they might have this belief that, oh, I don't like whatever it is, potatoes or whatever, but they've only had it one way because that's how their parents made it and that's how they grew up. And then they've never tried a different way to have it. Like eggplant. My husband's like, oh, it tastes slimy. I don't like it. It's the seeds, blah, blah, blah. Well, one day I kind of mashed it up and I made a calzone and he ate it. And he was like, oh, this is actually decent. I'm like, yeah, because it's not I don't like the slimy eggplant either, but this is cooked differently. And he was like, oh, okay. So keep a food journal, right? So just like we have a baseline with anything else, keep a food journal of what you're eating, what you feel about it, how you think about it. Even if somebody else is eating a food that you don't like, what is it you don't like about that food? Was it something that happened when you were 6 years old? Was it like your mom was forcing you to eat peas and now you don't like peas? I don't know. What if there might be a story behind it? And if there is, you got to ask, is it true? Is it something I want to keep? Is this a story I want to keep, or do I want to change the story? Right? And that's how you start with yourself. You find out where you are, you find out what you're thinking, and how to change it is the hard part. And that's where I wish I had my coaches. But when you have a coach, and especially in a one-on-one program, it's, individualized to what you need. So if you tell me your diet's great, but your exercise needs work, then that's where we're going to focus, right? If you tell me, oh, I'm exercising every day, but I can't sleep at night because I'm drinking coffee all day long, whatever it is, then we're going to work on those issues. So even though I have teaching modules for each week, it's very individualized.
Sure. That makes sense. That's awesome. And where can people find and follow you?
I am pretty active on social media. So I have Facebook, Instagram accounts. It's called The Wealth of Wellness. I have my YouTube channel, again, The Wealth of Wellness, and I have my podcast, This Incredible Mom Life.
That is awesome. Do you have a motto in life? You just seem like someone that's had a lot of life experiences. You've gone through a lot of things. You obviously are very educated. Do you have a motto that if your kids were like, yeah,
I have a life mantra. So
that's how she is.
Just as an aside, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. And in between that, I went through infertility treatment. So I saw a lot of doctors and I had a lot of procedures. And somewhere along the line, I don't remember exactly when, I started telling my husband that I'm like a phoenix, the mythical creature. And I used to consider
I have a big
Nice.
tattoo
So
on my back. So I
I
know
used to
exactly what you're
consider
talking
like anytime I had to go into the hospital for a procedure or a whatever, my burning day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be reborn. I'm going to come out of this stronger and better than I was. And I still use that now. And the Phoenix is actually a logo in my business now. Yeah.
Awesome. That is fantastic. I love that for you. That was me for a very different reason. I went through some bad relationship choices, and they were my choices. I got in those, and I was like, okay, what did I learn from this? And how can I come back brighter and stronger than I was before? And I always do. I feel like everyone's in our life for a reason. Every experience happens, and you can kind of go, I'm either going to let this destroy me
Yes.
or I'm going to learn from this. And I always try to choose to learn from it. What did I learn from this person, this experience,
Yes.
So I love the Phoenix. That's so awesome. And I want to see your logo now.
Yes.
That's great. I appreciate you being here so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, every woman deals with this in some way or another. And I think the more we know, the stronger we are, and the smarter we are, literally, to make better choices for ourselves and feel empowered. And really would encourage people to look into your coaching program because, like you said, I mean, I anytime I felt a hurdle in my life where I'm like, I could use some outside resources right now. I get a therapist. I get a
Yes.
coach. Like there are times in our life where you can only read so many books and talk to your girlfriends or what have you. And then there's like, you know what? I could use a little extra guide right now, perspective and the knowledge of someone that can move me through this more effectively and
Yes.
efficiently. So
Yeah.
I
Because they've been through it.
really am grateful that you
They've
shared
been
your
through it.
story.
They know.
Yes. Well,
Like I
yes.
said, if I knew what health coaching was when I was learning about cycle syncing, I probably would have hired a coach, but I didn't even know they existed at that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. I am very excited to share this episode.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Your Unapologetic Life. Thank you so much for joining me today and for being part of this empowering journey. Remember, you don't have to feel disgusted or out of control when looking in the mirror anymore. You can feel powerful, proud, and truly beautiful. If you're ready to change and step into your unapologetic self, I invite you to visit my website, morganbarkus.com, to schedule a call with me. We can chat and see if the 90-day coaching program is the perfect fit for you. Together, we can move you from feeling stuck to feeling empowered and radiant, from out of control to in your power. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your fabulous friends, and join me next time for more insights on living your best unapologetic life. Until then, keep shining bright, girl.